Today on Serve and Learn. Get ready, because today we're going to jump back through time as we wrap up the third and final overview of the Dominican Republic. We're going to check out the history and see what type of things happened to make the Dominican what it is today. We'll also have a chance to check out and see what type of holidays the Dominicans celebrate. This and more coming up next on Serve and Learn.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to another exciting edition of Serve and Learn. I'm Brian Link, and today we're going to wrap up the third and final Dominican overview. Today we'll be talking about the history, so let's not waste any more time.
The history of the island as we know it begins in pre-11 AD with the occupation of the Taino Indians, who came from what is now modern-day Venezuela. They came by canoe and filtered up through the Caribbean. The Taino Indians as a whole are described as peaceful and easygoing. They wore little clothing and lots of jewelry made of shells, bones, and even gold. They lived in structures similar to North American teepees, but used palm leaves for the roof instead of animal hide. From here we could jump to the 15th century, which was a time of great exploration. Columbus, who was born Italian, convinced the monarch of Spain to support him in his explorations. Everyone, including Columbus, was intent on finding an alternate route to India. In 1492, Columbus first saw this island, which he called Hispaniola, or Little Spain, since the shape reminded him of Spain. Journals were found of Christopher Columbus describing the island as fertile to an excessive degree and filled with trees of 1,000 kinds and tall, seeming to touch the sky. It was here that Columbus encountered the friendly indigenous people who helped him make repairs to one of his ships, the Santa Maria, that ran aground. Because European settlers were in search of wealth, they began to enslave the Taino Indians to work in the sugarcane, rice, and tobacco fields. Life became unbearable for the Tainos, and mass suicides resulted. The Tainos were almost completely wiped out through western disease, hunger, and murder all in about 50 years.
Hi, today I'm standing here at El Morro National Park in the city of Monte Cristi, Dominican Republic. Behind me, you can see a large cove that Christopher Columbus sailed by in 1492. You can also see a very large rock formation which Columbus himself named El Zapato, which means the shoe. As you can see, the rock has a lot of ridges, and the overall shape is in fact like a shoe. The only thing that's missing are the shoelaces. Even today, over 500 years later, people still refer to this large rock as the shoe.
Let's take another jump through time to the 17th century. During this time period, French buccaneers began to settle largely on the uninhabited western third of the island. France got control of the western third in 1697, mostly due to these French pirates. The French called it Saint Dominique, and it soon became the most prosperous colony in the New World. They were the leading producer of coffee and sugar. Nearly 8,000 slaves were arriving annually, and in 1793, slavery is finally abolished on the French side of the island due to a slave revolution. And in 1804, the Republic of Haiti is born. Independence was not well received by the rest of the world. It was actually cut off by the colonial powers and slave societies throughout the Americas, who lived in fear of the example set by Haiti's ex-slaves. In 1822, Haiti overtook the Spanish-speaking side of the island and abolished slavery. This occupation lasted until February 27, 1844, now known as the Dominican Republic's Independence Day. When we return, we'll be taking a look at the 1900s. But first, it's time for another Serve and Learn Spanish Word of the Week. This week's word, country.
The word for country in Spanish is país, les partes. País, país.
Let's check it again.
The word for country in Spanish is país, les partes. País, país.
This has been another Serve and Learn Spanish Word of the Week.
We've already covered a lot of ground, pre-11 AD through the 1800s. Now let's see what happens in the 1900s.
In 1916, the U.S. Marines occupied the Dominican Republic. Woodrow Wilson was the president at this time. The peasants were opposed to this occupation, while the majority of the wealthy Dominicans were for it, as the business relations with the U.S. helped them get richer while the poor kept getting poorer. There are even plenty of accounts of human rights being violated by the U.S. military. Peasants rebelled, and there was a loosely organized guerrilla army. The U.S. even pillaged and burned entire villages in an effort to kill off the guerrillas. The U.S. also formed a new Dominican National Guard to help squash the rebels. And then, Rafael Leonidas Trujillo came into play. Placed by the U.S., he soon became a prominent army commander who established absolute political control. The U.S. Marines finally depart in 1924, and for about the next 6 years it was considered to be a time of relative peace and prosperity in the Dominican Republic. Trujillo took power quickly, relying on the support of his friends in the U.S. military and his stolen fortune and the power he had gained in the military. Roughly 30,000 people were killed during his 30-year dictatorship. In 1937, 20,000 Haitians were killed in the border region because he wanted to lighten the population. Ironically though, Trujillo actually had some Haitian heritage and wore face makeup to lighten his appearance. Even after these heinous crimes, Trujillo still had the support of the U.S. as he pledged his allegiance to the Allies during World War II. He even accepted almost 1,000 Jewish refugees. They were given land to settle in Sosua and created a lively community. Many people believe Trujillo agreed to take in these light-skinned Europeans in order to lighten the population. It was at this point that the Mirabal sisters, the Catholic Church, and the rest of the Latin American community realized his brutality and began to speak out against him. The Mirabal sisters were sadly killed by Trujillo, and they became a great symbol for the Dominican Republic's freedom. One of the sisters that survived, many years later, told the story of the Mirabal sisters to novelist Julia Alvarez, who was born in the Dominican Republic as well. She wrote a book, In the Time of the Butterflies, and it was later turned into a movie. Trujillo was eventually assassinated in 1961. Chaos followed, and the next 35 years, the Dominican Republic had multiple presidents, including a second military invasion from the U.S. in 1965, but the country now has a stable democracy.
Hi everyone, behind me you can see a yellow house. And it's not just any yellow house, it's actually a very important symbol of Dominican history. This is the house where Manolo Taveras grew up. Manolo was famous to Dominican history because he helped to start the revolution against the Dominican dictator Trujillo. After many years of fighting against Trujillo and informing people of his wrongdoings, Manolo was killed in 1963. Just across the street from this house, where he lived, is a park, complete with plaques in his memory.
As you can see, the history of the Dominican Republic is a roller coaster ride, and throughout every civilization's history always comes the creation of new holidays. Some holidays are the same throughout different cultures, and some are very unique. If you look at the Dominican calendar, you will see tons of holidays. Many believe it's because of the Dominicans' liking for a good party, but really, it all stems from their history. Although we aren't going to learn about all the holidays of the Dominican Republic, let's go take a look at some of the main holidays celebrated.
The first holiday of the year, celebrated on January 1st, is New Year's Day. There are many different traditions and superstitions on how people celebrate this holiday. One of those traditions is to eat grapes at midnight. Because the Dominican culture is heavily tied to religion, on January 21st, the Dominicans celebrate Our Lady of Altagracia, which is one of their patron saints. On January 26th, the Dominicans celebrate Duarte's birthday, which is celebrated on the closest Monday. Pablo Duarte was one of the 3 founding fathers of the Dominican Republic. On February 27th, the Dominicans celebrate their Independence Day. This usually consists of parties and a parade in the town. The Dominicans also celebrate Good Friday and Easter, or Semana Santa. This is usually celebrated in late March or early April. The Dominicans also take a day to sit back, relax from their hard day's work. On May 1st, or the closest Monday to May 1st, they celebrate their Labor Day. On August 16th, or the closest Monday, the Dominicans celebrate Restoration Day. Restoration Day celebrates the day that a national war of restoration began, re-establishing the Dominican Republic's independence by 1865. Our Lady of Mercedes is the country's other patron saint, which is celebrated on September 24th. The Dominican Republic also has a constitution, like many other countries. In fact, the day in which the Constitution was signed in the Dominican Republic is celebrated on November 6th, or the closest Monday. And finally, at the end of the year, the Dominicans celebrate Christmas on December 25th.
Hi, I'm Jasmine Mont. I'm here with Guillo Alvarez, an elderly person of the Dominican Republic, to talk about some history. ¿Cuánto tiempo ha vivido en Montecristi?
Bueno, tengo 66 años, viví 16 años en 8 en la capital y 10 en Santiago.
¿Cómo fue este país cuando usted estaba en los niños?
Bueno, el país fue principalmente en la era de Trujillo, eso no fue fácil, pero ahí va uno más o menos cogiendo experiencia y vio cuando un tío mío que se llamaba Armando Álvarez me entrenó para que perteneciera al movimiento clandestino 14 de junio.
¿Cuál es la cosa o evento más interesante que usted ha tenido en este país?
Bueno, siempre me gustaba el deporte, la pelota y cosas, pero que siempre luchaba porque abrí los ojos con temprana edad, viendo que era una dictadura terrible la de Trujillo. Entonces por eso me incorporé en el movimiento clandestino 14 de junio.
¿Cómo fue su experiencia en el tiempo de Trujillo?
Pasé mucho trabajo, preso cada rato, gancho. Tú no sabes lo que es los ganchos, es que dicen que tú hiciste tal cosa, así, y yo en la escuela y me iban a buscarme preso, y que apareció tal cosa, y entonces lo pegaban a uno porque ellos sabían que uno era en contra de Trujillo.
That's all for today's show. But now that you're all experts on some general facts of the Dominican Republic, go out there and share these facts with your parents, your family, or even your friends. Also, be sure to check out the other cool features on the website. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.